Good morning. I had to get my computer here to come back. The screen had gone blank or black on the other, the laptop or the desktop computer. Anyway, yes, I'll just give the title and then I'll explain why I came up with this title and why I'm talking about this today. Law of attraction is not absolute. All right. I know many metaphysical spiritual friends will not agree, since modern teachers of the law of attraction say that everything that happens is a result of our thoughts and beliefs. Perhaps this is true for the collective in a general way, but it is certainly not true that every challenge or adversity that occurs in an individual human life is the result of that one thinking bad thoughts or doing bad things. There are literally multitudes of people affected by wars, chemtrails, genetic modification of food, poisoning of water supplies, contamination of medications, and a host of other insane practices that go on daily in human culture that cannot be traced to any single individual's thought as being causal, or why that man, woman, or child experiences such horrific things. To say they did it is insane. It makes no sense to the rational mind or the loving heart. At most, what we might say is that we collectively experience the results of the group mind created by all of us that have forgotten who we are and how much power we really do have. That is all of us. Let me repeat, however, that the law of attraction is not absolute in explaining each and every occurrence in an individual's life. Now, that's my title and my blurb and my topic for the day, which had absolutely nothing to do with anything that I was meditating on for the good while before I came to the computer room about just past 3 o'clock. And yes, it was 3:33 when I began talking today. I did not know immediately upon coming to the computer what I was going to be discussing, so I did what I often do, is I go to my emails and I look and see if there's anything, any message or anything that triggers a thought that needs further explanation. And I got an email on YouTube from my friend George, who I'm not sure exactly where he lives, but he wrote, "Dear Ron, this is just a short note to say how upsetting I find Teal Scott's latest video. I seem to be in the minority as I do not like her message. It is the message that claims good people attract bad things into their lives by virtue of the thoughts they are thinking, even if they are not doing it deliberately. I cannot for the life of me imagine how all the people of Halubja attracted the experience of being chemically attacked, killed in the thousands, with some writhing in agony, men, women, and children, and even animals. What the hell is wrong with such teachers that they would suggest that this is a deliberate creation based on the thoughts of the people involved? She also tells us it is a bitter pill to swallow, but it's true. My heart says this is terribly wrong, Ron, and I cannot help but see this lady as a form of evil, since there exists in her no real emotion or connection to events as one would expect in a human with compassion. I think all those people are in denial about just how bad this world has been to some souls, and terribly, terribly naive. I hope I am not alone in seeing the insanity of such messages and how disrespectful it is to the many souls who have suffered and died. George." Yes, George, I agree with you. And I'll bet you I'm not the only one either. And you're not alone in seeing the insanity of the result of thinking any doctrine or explanation or belief system is absolute continuously. There is no such thing in many respects as an absolute. I think for me, the only absolute is that everything is interconnected. There is no such thing as separation. That is the only true illusion. That is the delusion under which the human race has been operating for a long time, that we are separate. And because we have all felt that separation, we have all experienced separation as our reality. We look at each other and we look at the world around us and we say, I am here, they or that is there, and we are not one. We go by just the eyes of our physical body and our other five senses, and we think that the five senses give us a picture of reality, when in fact, what we are able to see is but the illustration again, the tip of the iceberg. Most of it is in the subconscious, things that we are not consciously aware of, and yet they have a great deal of effect on what happens to us. And collectively, it is true that because we have not known that we are each and every one of us children of God, because we have made it to be about belief systems, about believing the right religion or the right political ideology or the right scientific theory, because we have made it about these things, we have diminished our ability to be able to perceive the interconnectedness of all life. But thanks be to God, our scientists, specifically our theoretical physicists and the mystics down throughout the ages, have kept on saying that everything is one, that we are all interconnected, and that love is the only reality. Everything that isn't love or doesn't express the interconnectedness of all life is an illusion or a lie, because we are separate. We aren't separate. We only appear to be separate. We only appear to be isolated. And lots of things happen to people that do not, from our earthly perspective, make any sense whatsoever. And they can't. And I agree with you that the teachers that teach that if it's happening to them, they must have done something wrong. And it happened even in the time of Jesus, when they talked about the man that was born blind. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus said, neither. Did you hear what he said in the Bible? It's recorded there in the Gospels. Neither one of them are responsible for why he was born blind. He was born blind so that God could ultimately be glorified, and then he healed the blind man and he was able to see again. And this is a metaphor for what is happening in the human race. Who is responsible that the human race suffers such calamitous events? Who is responsible that the human race is ruled by madmen and women, by psychopaths, by sociopaths, who do absolutely criminally insane things because they're afraid? And we're ruled by that. Who's responsible, God? Who's responsible for all of the pain and the anguish and the sorrow and the injustice and all the calamities that take place on this planet? Who's responsible, God? And God would say, I believe, nobody and everybody. But nobody individually is responsible for it. But we all are collectively, because we've agreed collectively. There's been a consensus made that we wanted to experience what it would be like to live in a manner separate from God. And we've gone down and we've descended into the depths of capability, into the depths of our creative powers to create even illusions that appear so real and yet are so horrific. And we created it, though we are love itself, though we are children of love. children of whatever mythic deity created us, but it is a life force that exists. I don't know that it's an individual person, but I do believe it expresses itself individually in many people. Some express that and reflect that image of God being love more perfectly and better than others. None of us get it perfect, though. None of us are flawless in our presentation of the love of God. I'm not. I know that. I do the best I can, and so do many others. And I'm sure Teal Scott is doing the best she can. I've read some of her material, I've heard some of her material, and it is meaningful to me. And we all speak some things that are true to us, and it's based on our current understanding and our current perception, and we don't mean any ill by it, and yet it becomes, to someone that's in a different perspective, very offensive, as is the case with whatever Teal Scott's latest video is. I have no idea what she talked about, but I know the general consensus. I know the general thought pattern of people that are New Age teachers or spiritual teachers of various persuasions, that nothing happens in the world by accident. Everything is cause, and it's all the cause of what we have believed, what we have done, what we have said. We're totally responsible. Well, totally responsible as in affixing blame for something happening, I think is stupid. It's insane. I really believe that. We are responsible in that we each have the ability to respond in the moment to things that happen and are happening in our lives. And we're recognizing that, and we're more and more moving into the heart and being able to respond in the moment to things that happen. When I was arrested on May the 27th, I didn't create that. Some will say, yes, you did. You were fighting the system. You were not acquiescing and doing what they told you to do and what they wanted you to do. Well, I'm not going to do what they tell me and what they want me to do, because I have rights granted by my Creator and affirmed by the government and the governments in which, in the state and the place in which I live. And that's true of each of you. You have, even if your country is just in the United Nations, there is a United Nations Charter that grants rights, or not grants, acknowledges human rights. This is factual. This is factual. As bad as our governments are, as bad as the UN may be in some of its mandates, still, underneath and underlying it all is the truth that individuals have rights. Every time I go into court, the judge says, you have rights. You know that by entering a plea, you waive those rights. And everybody, pretty much, I don't know that I've had one person, I don't know that I've seen one person except for myself that gets into that place. They also, yes, I know that I have rights. And yes, I know that by entering a plea, I'm waiving those rights, and I'm doing so intelligently. Well, that's never an intelligent thing. If you have rights, exercise them, for God's sakes, for your own sake. But we don't do it because we're ignorant, and then we become victims of the system. And that is our ignorance that's doing that. And yet, even people that do know their rights and try to stand up for their rights sometimes are denied their rights and abused by the system, sometimes even killed. Is that correct? Of course, it's the way things actually appear to be playing out. And it seems unjust. And I'd like to live in a world where everything that happens, you can see the result, so that when you are praying for people and doing your best to love others, that bears fruit in your life, and it creates a world that makes sense, that doesn't violate your rational mind and your loving heart. Do you hear what I'm trying to say? The points that I'm trying to get across. I'm glad that George sent me this short note. I'm glad he emailed me with this concern, because it's a concern that many of us have, whether we voice it or not. But so many of us are unwilling to voice any criticism of teachers that are spiritual teachers and seen as some kind of authority figures in explaining human events. And there is no blanket law or doctrine or dogma that can explain every human event. We have to be in the moment, and we have to look at each thing individually now. Now. What's the response now? Am I going to be, oh well, stick my nose up in the air like the priests did in the story of the Good Samaritan that I talked about a few days ago? Stick our nose up in the air as if it doesn't really matter, it's not my concern, it's their karma? Or are we going to be compassionate? I choose to be compassionate, even to the judge, even to the attorneys, even to the people that are involved in some of the things in my life that seem so unjust and seem so distorted and misconstrued. I choose to see with eyes of compassion. It was a hard lesson for me to learn because I felt victimized by the system. I really did. And in a sense, I really was victimized. But I got the opportunity to respond and say, hey, yeah, it's unjust. Yeah, you're a victim. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to learn to stand in your power and stand up for your rights and stand up for who you are? Are you going to be willing to love instead of hate? Are you going to be willing to change your mind and to respond from a place of compassion, from a place of wisdom, from a place of grace? How are you going to respond? That's what we have the choice to do. And we are responsible for how we respond. We are responsible for our reactions and our actions and our thoughts. But many things happen to many people that they are not individually and personally responsible for. Who sinned? Neither he nor his parents sinned. But for the awakening, we experience these things so that we can choose a different way of expressing government and expressing commerce and expressing the physical reality of the world we live in. We are bringing forth the kingdom of heaven on earth, and it's done through our consciousness. That's the only way we've ever done it, and it's the way we're doing it now. It's human consciousness, and it's the collective consciousness that determines what we experience collectively. Individually, we are not responsible for everything that happens that the insane people do. We're just not. Thank you for listening and considering these viewpoints. Namaste.